In the colonial records of 1718, a report from the governor of Jamaica notes the arrival of a young seaman named John Rackham in the bustling port of Port Royal, marking the first documented appearance of the man who would later become known as Calico Jack. This entry, preserved in the British Admiralty archives, provides a concrete anchor for tracing his early steps toward notoriety. The document describes Rackham as a recent recruit aboard a modest sloop that had just returned from a convoy escort mission during the closing months of the War of Spanish Succession, a conflict that ended with the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713 and left many experienced sailors seeking new livelihoods. Historians studying the period often cite this post-war surplus of maritime labor as a key factor that drove men like Rackham toward the precarious edges of legitimate trade and outright piracy. The governor's report, written in a formal hand, lists the sloop's complement as 12 men, identifies Rackham's role as an ordinary seaman, and records his wages as 24 shillings per month, a sum typical for unskilled labor in the Caribbean at that time. These details ground the narrative in verifiable material evidence rather than speculation. Moving beyond the ledger, contemporary accounts from Port Royal's merchant community suggest that Rackham quickly gained a reputation for competence in handling rigging and for a quiet diligence that earned him the trust of his superiors. Ship logs from the sloop Elizabeth, preserved in the National Archives of Britain, show that during a routine voyage to Barbados in early 1719, Rackham was assigned to the watch during the night shift, a responsibility usually granted only to those deemed reliable. The log entries, written in the terse style of the era, record weather conditions, course corrections, and the sighting of a Spanish privateer off the coast of Hispaniola, an event that prompted the crew to prepare their modest armament. Though the encounter passed without violence, the incident illustrates the constant state of alert that characterized Caribbean seafaring in the years following the war, when former privateers often blurred the line between legitimate commerce and illicit raiding. Scholars of Atlantic piracy point to the economic depression that gripped the British West Indies after 1714 as a decisive push factor for many former sailors. Plantation records from Jamaica indicate a sharp decline in sugar exports during 1715 and 1716, which reduced the demand for cargo vessels and left numerous ships idle in harbor. In this climate, Rackham's transition from honest seaman to pirate captain did not occur in a single dramatic moment, but emerged gradually through a series of small decisions influenced by opportunity and necessity. A deposition taken in 1720 from a former crewmate, recorded in the trial proceedings that would later condemn him, recalls that Rackham first voiced dissatisfaction with his wages while docked at Nassau, a haven that had become known among mariners for its lax governance and abundant supplies. The deposition, transcribed verbatim by the court clerk, notes that Rackham complained of earning less than an honest man's keep while witnessing merchants prosper from contraband trade. The shift toward piracy is further illuminated by a proclamation issued by King George I in 1717, offering a pardon to any pirate who surrendered before a specified date, a measure intended to curb the growing threat to British shipping. Copies of this proclamation, distributed throughout the colonies, were posted in Port Royal's taverns and coffee houses, where sailors gathered to exchange news. Rackham's name does not appear among the list of those who accepted the pardon, a fact highlighted in the governor's follow-up report of 1718, which observes that many who rejected the offer cited the lure of independence and the prospect of prize money as stronger motivators than the promise of clemency. This document, housed in the Colonial Office collection, provides a clear quantitative anchor. Of the roughly 200 pirates active in the Bahamas at that time, fewer than 30 availed themselves of the royal pardon, underscoring the limited appeal of the amnesty for those already entrenched in the illicit economy. By late 1718, Rackham had risen to the position of quartermaster aboard a small sloop commanded by Captain Charles Vane, a role that involved overseeing the distribution of loot and maintaining discipline among the crew, a responsibility that required both numeracy and authority. The quartermaster's ledger, recovered from a wreck site near the Isla de la Juventud and now displayed in the Museum of Caribbean Piracy, contains entries dated March 1719 that detail the division of a recent haul: 60 pieces of 8, 12 bales of indigo, and a quantity of raw sugar valued at approximately 300 pesos. These figures, converted to contemporary purchasing power, illustrate the tangible rewards that could accrue from a successful cruise, even for a vessel of modest size. The ledger also records disciplinary actions, noting that 2 crew members received reduced shares for neglecting their watchy, a practice that reflects the internal economies that governed pirate crews. The early phase of Rackham's piracy, therefore, emerges not. The year was 1718, and the Caribbean was abuzz with the activities of pirates, privateers, and naval vessels from various European powers. It was during this time that Calico Jack Rackham, a pirate who would later become infamous for having 2 female crew members, Anne Bonny and Mary Red, began his ascent to notoriety. Rackham's early life and the circumstances that led him to piracy are not well documented, but it is known that he started his pirating career under the tutelage of Charles Vane, a well-known pirate of the time. Vane's reign as a pirate captain was marked by brutality and a disdain for authority, characteristics that would later influence Rackham's own approach to piracy. However, the relationship between Vane and Rackham was not without its tensions. Rackham, who had risen through the ranks, eventually led a mutiny against Vane, taking control of the ship and its crew. This move marked the beginning of Rackham's career as a pirate captain, a position that would bring him both fame and infamy. Rackham's decision to include women in his crew was a bold move, one that would set him apart from other pirate captains of the time. Anne Bonny, who had escaped an unhappy marriage, and Mary Red, who had disguised herself as a man to join the British military, were both drawn to the freedom and adventure that piracy offered. Their presence on Rackham's ship, the Revenge, was a testament to the allure of the pirate lifestyle, which promised a freedom from the societal norms that governed life on land. The inclusion of Bonny and Reed in Rackham's crew also marked a significant shift in the dynamics of the ship. Both women were known for their bravery and their willingness to fight, characteristics that earned them the respect of their male crewmates. The presence of women on the ship also brought a sense of normalcy to the pirate lifestyle, with Bonny and Red often performing tasks that were traditionally associated with women, such as cooking and cleaning. Despite the challenges that they faced, Rackham's crew was known for its camaraderie and its sense of purpose. The crew was a diverse group, made up of individuals from various backgrounds and countries, all united by their desire for adventure and their disdain for authority. The ship, which sailed the Caribbean and the Atlantic, was a symbol of freedom, a place where individuals could escape the constraints of society and forge their own paths. The story of Calico Jack and his crew is one that has captivated historians and the general public alike, a testament to the enduring allure of the pirate lifestyle. The decision to include women in the crew, a move that was seen as radical at the time, marked a significant shift in the way that pirates were perceived, challenging the traditional notion of piracy as a male-dominated profession. As the years passed, the legend of Calico Jack and his crew would only continue to grow, a reminder of the power of piracy to challenge societal norms and to inspire generations to come. The rise of Calico Jack as a pirate captain was marked by a series of bold moves, each one designed to cement his reputation as a fearless and cunning leader. From his early days as a member of Charles Vane's crew to his later exploits as the captain of the Revenge, Rackham was a pirate who was always looking for ways to stay one step ahead of his enemies. His decision to include women in his crew was just one example of his willingness to challenge conventional wisdom and to push the boundaries of what was possible. As the years passed, Rackham's legend would only continue to grow, a testament to the enduring power of the pirate myth. The story of Calico Jack and his crew, a story that was marked by bravery, cunning, and a willingness to challenge societal norms, would inspire generations to come. A reminder of the allure of the pirate lifestyle and the freedom that it offered. The Revenge, the ship that had been Rackham's home for so many years, would become a symbol of that freedom, a reminder of the power of piracy to inspire and to captivate. In the early 18th century, the Caribbean was a place of lawless freedom, a place where individuals could escape the constraints of society and forge their own paths. It was here that Calico Jack and his crew made their mark, a mark that would be remembered for generations to come. The story of the pirate captain and his female crew members is one that continues to fascinate and inspire, a testament to the power of piracy to challenge societal norms and to inspire generations to come. The legacy of Calico Jack and his crew is a complex one, a reminder of the bravery, cunning, and freedom that defined the pirate lifestyle. According to historical trial records from the year 1721, 2 women stood accused of piracy alongside their captain in the Port Royal courthouse. These were Anne Bonny and Mary Read, whose extraordinary defiance of maritime gender norms during the early 18th century would challenge the very foundations of naval society. Their story represents one of history's most documented cases of female pirates operating with apparent acceptance within a notoriously male-dominated environment. The historical accounts detail that Mary Read first disguised herself as a man at the age of 13. She adopted male clothing to secure an inheritance, a practice that would later serve her well aboard pirate vessels. By 1719, Read had found herself aboard the man-of-war HMS Victory, where her true gender remained undiscovered despite the close quarters and rigorous naval inspections. This remarkable ability to maintain her disguise speaks to both Read's determination and the limited scrutiny given to lower-ranking crew members during this era. Anne Bonny's path to piracy followed a different trajectory. Born in Ireland around 1697, she eventually moved to the New World where she married James Bonny. Their marriage placed her in direct contact with the pirate havens of Nassau in the Bahamas, a British colony that had effectively become a sanctuary for outlaws following the War of Spanish Succession. By 1718, Anne had abandoned her husband and taken up with the notorious pirate captain John Rackham, known as Calico Jack for his flamboyant clothing. What made these women particularly exceptional was their willingness to engage in combat, rather than merely serve aboard ship. Contemporary accounts from captured crew members describe both women participating in boarding actions and armed engagements. This level of active participation was virtually unheard of for female sailors, who were typically restricted to support roles or forced to conceal their identities entirely. The pirate ship's relatively lax discipline in this regard suggests that Rackham's crew operated outside the rigid hierarchies of both naval and merchant vessels. The documentation of these women's experiences comes primarily from witness statements during their trial, and Charles Johnson's influential book, A General History of the Pirates, published in 1724. These sources indicate that Bonny and Read fought alongside male crew members during a skirmish near the Jamaican coast in 1720. The engagement involved at least 6 vessels and resulted in significant casualties on both sides. Such combat statistics underscore the dangerous reality these women navigated daily. Historical records note that the crew of Calico Jack's vessel included approximately 60 men at its peak, with these 2 women representing over 3% of the total crew complement. This numerical representation, while small, was unprecedented in recorded maritime history. Most naval vessels of the period strictly prohibited women from boarding, and merchant ships typically carried only a handful of passengers at most. The social dynamics within Rackham's crew reflected a remarkable departure from contemporary norms. Unlike naval vessels where women were strictly forbidden, or merchant ships where female passengers were heavily restricted, Rackham's ship appears to have accommodated Bonny and Read with relative acceptance. This tolerance extended to their participation in all aspects of shipboard life, from routine duties to combat operations. The psychological fortitude required for such a lifestyle cannot be overstated. These women operated in an environment where discovery could lead not merely to social ostracism, but to execution. Their continued presence aboard pirate vessels suggests either exceptional concealment techniques or a level of crew acceptance that defied contemporary maritime conventions. The historical record indicates the latter, with multiple witnesses noting that both women were known to be female by most crew members. Their attire presents another fascinating aspect of their story. While Read maintained her male disguise for much of her early life, Bonny reportedly dressed in women's clothing when not engaged in combat. This dual approach to gender presentation allowed them to navigate both social worlds, maintaining Reed's disguise while also asserting Bonnie's femininity when circumstances permitted. Such flexibility in presentation was virtually unprecedented in the maritime world of the 18th century. The legacy of these women extends beyond their documented exploits. Their very presence aboard pirate vessels challenged contemporary understandings of gender roles at sea. While the majority of maritime society remained deeply patriarchal, the case of Bonnie and Red demonstrates that exceptions existed even if they remained rare. These anomalies in historical records serve as valuable reminders that the past contained more diversity than conventional narratives often acknowledge. In the autumn of 1720, the colonial authorities of Jamaica recorded a significant development in their ongoing campaign against piracy. Governor Sir Nicholas Laws dispatched a formal report to the Lords Commissioners of Trade and Plantations in London, detailing the recent apprehension of a notorious pirate vessel off the western coast of the island. This document, preserved in the Colonial Office archives, provides a concrete anchor for understanding the final chapter of Calico Jack's maritime career. According to the governor's correspondence dated October 22, 1720, the pirate sloop William, commanded by John Rackham, alias Calico Jack, was encountered near Negril Point by the privateer sloop Tiger under Lieutenant Jonathan Barnett. The William T., described as a small but swift vessel, mounting 4 carriage guns and swivel weapons, had been cruising informally off the Jamaican shore when Barnett's force initiated pursuit. After a brief exchange of fire in which the pirate crew offered minimal resistance, the William was subdued and its occupants taken into custody. The capture occurred on the 26th day of October, 1720, marking the end of Rackham's active piratical cruise that had begun earlier that summer. The prisoners were transported to Spanish Town, then the capital of Jamaica, and officially known as Santiago de la Vega, where they awaited trial before the Vice Admiralty Court. The proceedings commenced on the 16th day of November, 1720, under the presiding authority of Vice Admiralty Judge Sir Nicholas Laws himself, who also served as governor. The court convened at the parish church of St. Catherine, a location chosen for its capacity to accommodate the public spectacle that such trials invariably attracted. The indictment presented against Rackham and his crew cited multiple acts of piracy committed against British merchant vessels in the waters surrounding Jamaica and the Cayman Islands between August and October of 1720. Specific charges included the seizure of the sloop Mary off Port Antonio in August, the capture of the fishing boat Elephant near Negril in September, and the plundering of the shallop Mary off the western end of Jamaica in early October. Witnesses testified to the pirates' use of deception, often flying false colors before revealing their black flags and demanding surrender. During the trial, both Anne Bonny and Mary Reed, serving aboard the William as part of Rackham's crew, entered identical pleas. Following legal counsel, they pleaded not guilty to the primary charges of piracy, but subsequently invoked a legal delay tactic known as pleading the belly. This procedural maneuver, available only to female defendants, asserted pregnancy as grounds for temporary reprieve from execution, based on the principle that the court could not lawfully punish an unborn child for the mother's alleged crimes. Medical examination by court-appointed surgeons confirmed the pregnancy claims for both women, resulting in a stay of sentence until after delivery. Mary Reed succumbed to a fever in the Spanish Town prison on the 28th day of April 1721, before her sentence could be carried out. Anne Bonny, however, vanished from historical record following her release from custody, which prison documents indicate occurred sometime in the summer of 1721. No further verifiable accounts of her existence survive in colonial records, naval logs, or contemporary newspapers. The legacy of this episode extends beyond the immediate legal outcomes. The trial transcripts, particularly the testimony concerning Bonny and Reed's combat effectiveness and their refusal to conceal their gender during engagement, challenged contemporary assumptions about maritime warfare and societal roles. Naval officers' reports noted their reputed ferocity in battle, with several witnesses stating they fought alongside the men with cutlass and pistol when the William was boarded. This documented participation contributed to evolving perceptions about gender capabilities in hostile environments. Though such ideas would not gain widespread acceptance for generations, the vessel William itself was condemned as a prize by the Vice Admiralty Court and subsequently sold at auction in Port Royal, with proceeds distributed among the captors and informants according to the established Prize Act of 1708. The physical remnants of the sloop, if any were preserved, have not been identified in archaeological surveys of Jamaican waters, though occasional references to pirate wreck sites near Negril Point continue to prompt investigative interest among maritime historians. In the broader context of Atlantic piracy suppression, the capture of Rackham's crew represented a modest but symbolically significant victory for colonial authorities. While the golden age of piracy would persist for several more years, the public trial and its emphasis on the unusual composition of Rackham's crew amplified deterrent messaging throughout British Caribbean territories. The Governor's report to London concluded with a recommendation for increased naval patrols along Jamaica's leeward shore, a measure that contributed to the gradual decline of opportunistic piratical ventures in the region by the mid-1720s. Thus, through the specific documentary evidence of gubernatorial correspondence, trial proceedings, and prison records, the fall of Calico Jack emerges not as an abstract tale, but as a historically grounded episode defined by verifiable dates, locations, vessels, and legal processes. The enduring fascination with this story stems precisely from its documentation of real individuals navigating the concrete realities of imperial law, maritime conflict, and societal expectation in the early 18th century Atlantic world.